Welcome, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Fox Business Network's Dagan McDowell, radio talk show host Meghan McCain, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, Steve Hilton, the former director of strategy for the former British Prime Minister David Cameron, and the CEO of CrowdPack, a Silicon Valley political tech startup. And Steve, you are outnumbered, sir. Good to have you back.
It's great to be back. I'm just worried we're going to run out of things to talk about.
Oh,
There's not enough going on.
Could you imagine?
Right. There's a little event coming up. Yeah, you know, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, and thank God we have the Queen's English to offset my hickness.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll do my best.
We love them both.
All right, looking and sounding good. A busy day indeed. Donald Trump throwing down the gauntlet. Under fire now for remarks he made about women, caught on that hot mic almost a dozen years ago. The Republican nominee threatening to keep going after the Clintons if more damaging tapes of him go public. Watch.
I said to myself, wait a minute. And I just saw very inappropriate words. But Bill Clinton sexually assaulted innocent women, and Hillary Clinton attacked those women viciously. One of them said more viciously than he attacked them. If they want to release more tapes saying inappropriate things, we'll continue to talk about Bill and Hillary Clinton doing inappropriate things. There are so many of them, folks.
So there are reports that there will be more attacks against Donald Trump, possibly some more leaked sound and video footage. Is this a good strategy for Donald Trump right now to double down on this?
In a word, no. I think that he really needs to stop talking about this for the good of his campaign. But I also think that she needs to stop talking about it for the good of the country. Because I think we are all so fed up with such an important election going down this path. Now, you can see why it made sense for him, this incredible weekend we've just had, on the debate on Sunday night, to make these points as a way of deflecting from this disgusting tape that was released. It made sense in terms of the tactics of the moment, but in terms of a strategy to win the election, not at all. He needs to have a message, and actually, compared to her, I think he does have a message that is potentially inspiring. Her only message is, he's disgusting and I'm not him. Actually, if he sticks to the substance, how he's going to get the economy going, create jobs, secure the border, beat ISIS, make America great again, that is potentially something that can lift the spirits of the country amidst this disgusting election campaign.
And we're going to talk more about how some Republicans are urging him to talk about
It's very tricky because I disagree with Bill Clinton's conduct, hands down, beginning when I was 13 years old and first found out about his actions in the White House. But for whatever reason, the American public has chosen to forgive Bill Clinton. He's a beloved figure. Her highest approval ratings ever was when he was cheating on her in the Monica Lewinsky scandal, 67% approval rating. This is very tricky. I would have more faith if this was a more shrewd politician. At this point, he has to focus on jobs, defeating ISIS. We have ISIS using chemical weapons against our soldiers in Iraq right now. There are much more pressing issues. I am disgusted with all of this. All of it, all together, her part, his part. I am really ready to move on, and I think it's a much smarter tactic.
And reinforcing the negativity of this campaign, there's a new Donald Trump TV ad out today, and this is him attacking her yet again on her stamina. Watch.
Hillary Clinton failed every single time as Secretary of State. She wants to be president. Hillary Clinton doesn't have the fortitude, strength, or stamina.
Dagan?
This isn't as bad as him talking about Bill Clinton. We know what Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton ain't running for the White House, though. It's Hillary Clinton, number one. He can hit her hard on her. I mean, she lied about having pneumonia, frankly, or she hid it. And you saw it there in that advertisement. But he needs to, he talks about Bill Clinton at his rallies because it whips his supporters into a frenzy, and he enjoys the cheers. His biggest problem is he's already got his base.
Yes.
They're already voting for him. It's women who are turning against him that he needs to worry about. And when he attacks Bill Clinton, he makes Hillary Clinton look like the victim that gave her an 11 percentage point advantage over her own husband. In that latest Wall Street Journal poll that was taken after this video came out, that her advantage among women increased to a 21 percentage point advantage, almost doubling from where it was in the month of September.
So going back to Steve's point, shouldn't she just just walk away from this issue at this point?
Yeah, so
Harris.
Steve, you make an interesting point that this hurts both of them, which I really hadn't heard before, but your experience, I should tell our audience, includes watching Brexit take over in the UK, and the lessons learned from that.
Well, I think that the biggest lesson from Brexit is that you've got this incredible feeling amongst the part of those who have been the losers, if you like, from globalization and the rapid technological change that's affecting everyone's jobs. Those who are on the losing side of that is a big group of people, and they are really fed up with the system where the winner takes all and they are left behind. And that was the group that came out to vote for Brexit, and I think to a certain extent the group that's supporting Trump. But I think that there's a bigger issue here, which is it's not just bad for her, it's bad for the country.
It's bad for the country.
I felt watching the debate, sitting there with my family, my 2 young boys, and watching it that on Sunday night, there was this incredible relief I felt after that first 20-30 minutes was out of the way, and we moved on to the real discussion we should be having, and I think that's what both of the candidates should do.
You had the earmuffs handy just in case, right? All right, so as we mentioned earlier, some Republicans are calling on Donald Trump to focus more on the economy and less on the Clintons. One conservative author writing, quote, "Even the most optimistic analysts agree this is a lackluster economy. Today, there are approximately 47 million Americans living in poverty, including an astounding 45 million people receiving food stamps. If voters begin to appreciate the actual state of the economy today, they may reject Hillary Clinton and a continuation of the Obama policies and vote for Trump." Steve, the economy, come on. This is what people care about.
This should be the heart of the election, and it goes to the point we were just discussing, is that you've seen such a divergence in the last more than a decade, actually, where you've had, doesn't matter if you had a Republican president or a Democratic president who controls Congress, nothing really seems to change for a huge group of people who seem to be stuck without being able to climb the ladder of opportunity that we used to take for granted in this country. And that's what this election should be about, and it's so much more important than all the stuff we're focusing on. Of course, I can understand why all this salacious stuff is interesting, but both of the candidates, I think, have a responsibility to move off of that.
You know, I think the other missed opportunity for both of these candidates, but particularly if they want to scoop up the black vote, you know, most of us actually don't live in the urban areas.
Right.
So when you hear Donald Trump talk about that isn't how you reach out to a lot of African Americans. But this issue of economy and the color being green, he may actually reach those black voters and those Hispanic voters that he's trying to get to with this kind of a focus.
And he's got a great message, particularly on the real heart of opportunity and growing incomes, which is education, and giving people more school choice and options in those areas where the public school system has so catastrophically failed.
And the whole,
that's a great message.
The entire election season, this has been a winning issue for him, and actually still is. The latest Fox News poll that came out last week, I think it came out on Friday. I don't know if we have it, but who do you trust to do a better job on? There were 4 issues that he tops Hillary Clinton in the economy, 50% to 45% on the economy.
50% think he would do a better job in the economy. So, again, it would behoove him to Megan, would the media cover it, though? He can talk about it all he wants and talk about what he's going to do to improve the economy, but can the mainstream media cover him?
He's nothing if not a showman. He can sell this. If I were him and advising him right now, I'd say this is super simple. Just ask the American public, which statistically we know they're unhappy with the economy, say, do you want more of Obama, but add in a touch of Bernie Sanders?
Yes.
This isn't just going to be a liberal agenda. It's going to be a progressive liberal agenda, and you're going to go even further and turn America into a socialist country. See how Venezuela's at. This isn't that complicated. In all seriousness, this is politics 101. It's messaging 101. And the fact that I am talking about sex scandals as much as I am instead of this is why we're losing.
Well, they're both in the pigsty, and so what do when you're living in the pig pen? They're both throwing mud and excrement at one another, and we're getting hit in the face with it. But to that point, the Fox News poll actually found people said the national economic conditions are getting worse. 52% of people said that, and you compare that to January of this year, up from 46%. So the people in this country feel like month after month this economy is not proving, and this is 8 years of malaise.
Well, and that's important as you look at the electoral map just this morning, because Donald Trump is struggling in some areas like Florida, like he hasn't before in the last couple of weeks. And so as we look at those new numbers, those kitchen issues, as we like to talk about them, may be the ones that really flip this in those swing states where, you know, unemployment is something that they talk about.
And who does that appeal to, Sandra Smith? Women.
Yeah.
Well, it appeals to everybody.
But women, we make the financial decisions in the houses, don't we?
Certainly in my house.
Steve. And he admits it. That's nice.
My husband's watching.
All right, well, we set it up for you. The countdown is on to the final presidential debate in Las Vegas. It will be held less than 3 weeks before Election Day, happening on Wednesday, October 19th. That's next Wednesday. Fox's award-winning journalist Chris Wallace will moderate that debate beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern, followed by the best analysis in the business right here on the Fox News channel, and you can see it all here. All right, well, in the aftermath of that tape of Donald Trump making crude comments about women, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus says the party will remain firmly behind him. But not all Republicans are on board. Should they be, or could it hurt them? And Donald Trump is doubling down on his threat to put Hillary Clinton behind bars if he's elected president. Whether that's the best strategy. And after the show, you can join our live chat by clicking on the Overtime tab at foxnews.com/outnumbered or go to facebook.com/outnumberedfnc. Give us a shout out. And of course, you can tweet us your thoughts as well. Chime in on the conversation. We'll see you there.
Welcome back on a fine Tuesday. Some potential fallout for Republicans over that videotape of Donald Trump making lewd comments about women. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus says in an emergency call with members of the Republican National Committee yesterday, the party will remain firmly behind its nominee. But earlier, House Speaker Paul Ryan declared he would no longer defend Donald Trump or campaign with him. Then came a warning from former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. He did not name any names, but he said in a Facebook Live video that history will judge Republicans who defect from supporting Donald Trump. The former speaker elaborated on that this morning on Fox and Friends. Watch.
The issue is, are you prepared to have Hillary Clinton as president?
For Republicans?
For Republicans. And every Republican who's confused, and I prefer to think of them as confused, needs to remember this is a binary process. You're going to get Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton in every way will be worse than Barack Obama. You got 28 days to win this election. You have 28 days to stop Hillary Clinton, who will be the most corrupt, the most dishonest person ever to occupy the presidency.
Next, a tweet from Donald Trump. Here it is. Despite winning the second debate in a landslide, every poll, he says parenthetically, it is hard to do well when Paul Ryan and others give zero support. Speaker Ryan's spokesperson said in a statement, quote, Paul Ryan is focusing the next month on defeating Democrats, and all Republicans running for office should probably do the same, end quote. So, Steve, the big question now is, does any of the establishment walking away from Donald Trump hurt him all that much, or do you think it will?
I think it does hurt in one sense. It hurts the party generally, but I think that I was interested in your use of the word walking away. I thought with Paul Ryan, it wasn't even as clear as that. And I think the real issue I have with his response to this is that it goes to something people really hate about politicians, which is when they act seemingly out of calculation, not conviction. And what he's doing there is making this very fine calculation, and I've seen other pundits say, well, he's trying to protect the House, he's doing his job, that's fine. I would have preferred it if he made a clear choice and said either what Trump said was disgusting, his campaign is disgusting, and therefore we must stand for something bigger than that and accept that that means allowing and supporting Hillary Clinton to be president. We'll do our job in the House to restrain her agenda.
Oh, interesting.
Or he could say, yes, what he said was disgusting and his campaign is disgusting, but there are bigger issues here, like the economy, like jobs, and therefore we have to swallow any doubts we have about him and really go for it. But he didn't make that choice, and I think this wishy-washy sitting on the fence actually confirms what people really hate about politicians.
It also confirms, Megan, what people thought from the beginning of this process with certain members of the establishment and the GOP, like Paul Ryan, that they really were not giving their full-throated support and endorsement to begin with. Your dad, Senator John McCain of Arizona, a toss-up state right now,
Yeah, it could go to Hillary.
has made a very definitive choice, and you played a role in that.
Yeah, this was not an easy choice by anybody's standards. Both my and my family respect the will of the voters, but I think when the videotape came out, you know, I spent, as you know me very well, Harris, I have spent a great deal of my life going to college campuses, speaking to young people, defending the fact that the Republican Party isn't a sexist party, that this is a party for women. So when something like this comes out and the men don't defend the conservative women, it becomes a larger issue. I think for Paul Ryan, and I disagree with you on this, he is in a completely untenable situation because he has to focus on controlling and saving the House and the Senate, which could be in play right now. And we don't want it to be like Goldwater in '64, which it very well could be. And then you want to talk about a scary situation? Hillary Clinton is president with the House and with Congress as well, excuse me, the Senate as well. And I think this entire situation, there is a certain point where character and the ideals and convictions that you live and espouse for your entire career and your entire life has to mean something. When you're talking about politicians and what people hate about politicians, they hate inauthenticity. And I think for me, for my family, it is something that I am just no longer comfortable supporting.
The only issue, the few issues I have with Republicans who have turned their, who supported Donald Trump and have now turned their backs on him. Your dad's a different situation too, I think, personally, with all respect, because of the comments that he made about your father specifically a year ago. So there's more history there. But these Republicans knew what this man was about. We knew that what this man was about and how he talked about women when he declared his candidacy for the presidency last year, which I sat on this very network and talked about. Over and over again, he's called women names. He's made fun of their appearance. He's gone after people on Twitter. And now all of a sudden they sign on and support Donald Trump. And then these Republicans get religion. They're worried. I understand they're worried about their own elections, but they need to keep their heads down and worry about keeping the House, quite frankly, because it is going to be a horror show.
Megan,
there was a promise he would change. I want
to ask you about this because I saw you tweeting about your dad having a debate last night. And one of the things that came up in that debate, as I understood, was that he's willing to do a write-in for the presidential choice.
I actually take umbrage at the idea that my father is alone in this. 4 in 10 Republicans would like a different nominee if that was a choice we had an option for. I've never experienced anything like this in my entire life, where I have a nominee who I basically think has a lot more liberal ideas and was a Democrat for his entire career, going up to the point that he decided to run for president. I have lived through campaign phenomenons before. I lived through the Sarah Palin phenomenon. And let me tell you, elections begin and they end. And there will be ramifications that I will be dealing with by the time I am my father's age because of this election. And right now, it was a choice not only because of politics, because of character. And I slept very well at night on Saturday night.
And maybe because there's more to come. Maybe also some people cut.
There's a month left till election day. A lot could still happen. I just wonder, Steve, based on everything you said, which was a very logical train of thought that you led with, what kind of damage do you think has been done to the party by this most recent example, Paul Ryan turning his back on his party's nominee?
I tell you what I think. Whatever happens in this election, those of us who support conservative ideas are going to have to get involved in rebuilding the party and making it attractive and relevant to people right across America. And I think those people who have made such a clear choice to stand apart from the people on this issue, frankly, whether we like it or not, the base of the party and the people are with Trump. And I think the answer to rebuilding the conservative movement is to start from there and then to understand that Trump is right in identifying some of these issues, but he's got no clear and coherent agenda for dealing with it, and that's the future of the GOP, rather than just sticking to the same old establishment approach that has clearly let people down and that is not going to be the basis for rebuilding the GOP or the conservative movement.
Interesting.
But neither is isolating women, minorities,
absolutely right,
millennials, which is the demographics we're bleeding right now, which we have done a lot of hard outreach to get, which there's been damage that I think will have decades of effects after this election.
Yeah.
Permanent damage.
Donald Trump tweeted out a little while ago that it's so nice that the shackles have been taken off of me and I can now fight for America the way I want to. He's been tweeting a lot today, and I guess we'll see what that means.
That's not encouraging.
Well, he says what he thinks, right? All right, well, meanwhile, Donald Trump doubling down on his threat to prosecute Hillary Clinton if he wins the White House. How serious a threat? And why even some conservatives are concerned about Trump's language. And you missed the 90s? I think my hair might. Al Gore's mission. Although I had some of that 90s hair not too long ago.
Break out the Zima. The 90s are back in Clinton world as Al Gore campaigns for the Democratic nominee this afternoon in South Florida. Hillary's campaign saying it plans to use the former vice president to reach out to millennials by talking about climate change and to highlight the dangers of third-party candidates stealing votes. But Gore's addition to the campaign sparking a lot of mockery from the right and even some from the left. Republican Senator Ben Sasse scoffing on Twitter, quote, "I'm so excited Al Gore is cool again. Now I can bring back my Dawson's Creek haircut." One of our own lucky guys, Jonah Goldberg, writing a blistering piece titled, "Really, Al Gore? Get a clue, Hillary." That scream you hear is from millennials. And the Huffington Post, Sam Stein, tweeting this throwback picture of Bill Clinton and Al Gore jogging with the line, quote, "We're coming for you, millennials." So
Oh my gosh.
I'm 31 and I'm an older millennial. I'm like right at the cusp of being not a millennial. I'm like 2 years away from it. I was 14 when Al Gore was a nominee for president. I think this is the dumbest tactic I've ever heard to reach out to millennials. What do you think?
I just saw this and to be honest, I didn't think anything. I just thought, who cares? Honestly, I think the impact of this on the election will be literally zero.
Nothing.
I think when I saw it's like some big, fat, juicy nothing burger. It's just, who cares?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'll tell you why you should care. And Donald Trump was actually tweeting about this very thing because you know what the Democrats have? Unity. They come together. Hillary Clinton and Al Gore don't even like each other. But you've got President Obama, the First Lady, giving the best speeches of the week at the Democratic National Convention. You have everybody under the sun out there campaigning for Hillary Clinton. They are a united front. They have put all their differences behind them. And what do the Republicans do? It is they're throwing mud at each other. They cannot get it together, and this is certainly evidence of that. By the way, the dude won a Nobel Prize. He is the Jim Morrison for climate change in terms of like.
But it doesn't.
And I keep asking you, how important is that, Megan?
It doesn't even rank in the top 10. I don't even think it's the top 15 of what voters care about. And the problem is, and I used to work for the company that created An Inconvenient Truth, is that the liberal hysteria over climate change was so overblown that now people have a hard time even believing it and believing that it's something that's justified, which I do think there's science we should look at. But if Al Gore, if you take his word for it, there's a big flood that's going to come in and wipe us all away in 5 minutes.
To Dagan's point, you know the one thing that they do have a lot of? Databases for those millennials. Just from 2012, not even reaching back to 2008, because some of those people are now over the age of 30 who had voted. But those databases, per those former campaigns and Al Gore's constant reach out to millennials, you know, on the topic of climate change, it's interesting. I mean, who wouldn't want that information? And it may be the tapping of that could really make a difference for her. Who knows?
So Jonah Goldberg points out in his piece, Megan, that it's the millennial problem that the headlines point out. It sort of is misleading because she doesn't have a problem with millennials in general. She's crushing Trump among young voters. ABC Washington Post poll shows her beating Trump with people ages 18 to 39 by 51 to 27%. The concern is whether or not they're going to show up and actually vote for her.
Yeah, and she is doing better than Donald Trump, but she still shouldn't have as many millennial votes taken away from her by Gary Johnson and I guess Jill Stein to a small degree. So that's where the bleeding needs to stop. I just don't think he's relevant enough in the conversation. And the climate change, you know, people, I just feel like they're going to go with Jill Stein anyway.
They'll go.
Yeah,
and Florida's a critical state when it comes to climate change. It is a front and center issue, not just because of Hurricane Matthew, but in South Florida, for example, in Miami, they've had to rip up all the roads in Miami Beach because of flooding, because of climate change.
We just covered it
in part. I mean, that's the excuse that the Democratic leadership uses down there. So it is a central issue for Florida voters, and if you are leaning a little bit left, this helps.
Well, Hurricane Matthew also readjusting the conversation to that topic recently.
I just think that, you know, there's a big underlying point, which is that young voters are so suspicious of the whole system. Gore can make these speeches, but they know that these big corporations that pay for candidates to get elected really pull the strings, and that's why Sanders appealed, and Trump to a certain extent, which is going to say we're going to break that whole system. And nothing that Gore says is going to deal with that basic suspicion.
I'm just glad that I got to see Bill Clinton's legs in running shorts.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
that
gosh,
helps. It helps the diet because you don't want to eat for about 5 days.
Oh my gosh.
I feel uncomfortable.
All right.
It wasn't pretty.
It's gross. All right. Gross. Donald Trump is doubling down on his threat to prosecute Hillary Clinton over her emails if he wins the White House. Good strategy, or does it cross the line?
Donald Trump doubling down on his threat to prosecute Hillary Clinton if he wins the White House. Here he is at a rally outside Pittsburgh yesterday. Listen.
Here's the United States Congress. United States Congress subpoenaing emails and other things, and they're gone. And now, by the way, did you read yesterday? 2 boxes of emails and materials are now missing. Okay? Very, very sad. Special prosecutor, here we come, right? If I win, we're going to appoint a special prosecutor.
His comments coming on the same day his campaign manager dismissed his original remarks on the debate stage as a quip. Meantime, syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer says Trump is crossing a line.
When you look at your opponent and you threaten to put your opponent in jail, you have gone way over the line of political decency in this country. That's not Hitler, Stalin, that's Banana Republic. We have had 250 years of miraculous transfer of power done peacefully and consensually. The one thing we don't do is to put people in jail or to execute them. In other countries, your life can be on the line in elections. And we had a long history where you don't even talk about that.
Well, he certainly is talking about that. Special prosecutor, here we come. What do you think of this strategy by Trump?
Well, I think we've got to separate two things. And actually, I think that, the remark that he made in the debate and then what looks like a policy after the election. I think the remark, to be fair, I do agree with the campaign spokesperson. If you watch the tape, it obviously was an off-the-cuff remark, a bit of a joke. And I think, honestly, if we want politicians, everyone says we're sick of these robotic politicians that all they ever do is do talking points. And if you want people to be more human and more natural, then don't jump down their throat when they're basically making a joke. The serious thing is this point about the special prosecutor. Now, what I don't really understand is what's the prosecutor going to look into? Is it the actual conduct of the investigation?
Yes.
If so, I think that is a reasonable point. It's not some conspiracy theory. I think there are legitimate questions about how this investigation was carried out. Things like the Loretta Lynch meeting with Bill Clinton on the plane, stuff like Comey saying the reason that we can't go forward with this was because there's no evidence of intent. And then you hear the story about smashing the devices with a hammer. What's that?
The laptops of the aides.
There's so much that's coming out. It's, I think, reasonable to say we're going to re-investigate the investigation, but I'm not sure that that's actually what he's saying.
Judge Napolitano, Fox News legal analyst, this morning kind of broke it down. And so I think some people wonder, well, would the prosecutor be looking at her again in the case? Yeah. And the answer is, it's what you said. It's an investigation of the investigation. Is that right, though?
Is that...
Yeah, that's what the judge says.
Oh, I see. But we don't really know what Trump...
Oh, well, no. I'm just telling you what it would be.
Right.
He has not been specific, to your point, on
what... there's something there.
What did Trump mean? We'd have to ask him.
I think it's not unreasonable. I don't think it's crazy. I think that there are serious grounds to be concerned about how this was handled.
You wouldn't even need a special prosecutor if you want to reopen the investigation. You just do that. If he gets elected president, his Justice Department can just do that if he wants to revisit the actual investigation of Hillary Clinton and what happened. I go to Charles Krauthammer, who I have a serious, deep crush on. But I'll add this about Donald Trump. He talks about this repeatedly at his rallies, and you hear the lock her up, the chant. You even heard him at the RNC. But I think that he needs to pick his words more carefully depending on his audience. He needs to know his audience. So he throws out the word jail in a debate, and it's not going to ring. It's not going to ring the same way, and people are going to go, "Huh, what the heck was that?"
So going back to the original question, Megan, is this a good political strategy for him to double down on this kind of threat?
I thought it was one of his strongest moments in the debate, actually, because I think even Democrats have a hard time reconciling that the Clintons live by a different standard than the rest of the American public does. I've said it before, Hillary Clinton could probably murder someone and somehow she'd get away with it. Hands down, the Clintons don't live by the same laws that you and I do. So I actually thought it was really strong. I think we're taking it to a very, very distinct, kind of weird level, and I love Charles Krauthammer as well, but I think everyone knew he was just simply trying to point out that she would be in jail if her last name weren't Clinton. And I think I agree with Dagan that if he's in a rally and he's speaking to his base, great, fantastic. Does this work well with independents? I actually might debate maybe, because people hate her so much and hate this so much.
I think Megan's exactly right. You put it so well. I think that's right.
But based on the language that he uses because he uses the word, I don't know the exact quote, but like throwing her in jail, then that becomes a story.
Yeah.
That becomes a story in and of itself where people end up debating, well, wait, is that, what does he mean by that?
But when Charles Krauthammer said, Charles used the phrase, threatened to put her in jail. That's a way over reading of what Trump actually said. It was an offhand
At least
remark.
he's pointing out her illegal behavior, though.
I would just add this real quickly, because we've been talking about Kellyanne Conway just as in title campaign manager. She originally said that the word quip was used because she heard it on network. On NBC, she said, I'm using their word. That was her quote. So just to put that
All right. Well, Team Hillary playing the woman card again, as her running mate says she's faced locker room attitudes her whole life. Can she use the Trump controversy to win over more female voters, or could it backfire?
It appears Team Hillary is playing the woman card again. Yesterday at a rally in Denver, VP nominee Tim Kaine seizing on the controversy over leaked audio of Donald Trump's lewd comments about women. Kaine saying Hillary Clinton has been a longtime victim of a, quote, locker room attitude. Watch this.
You have Hillary Clinton, a super well-qualified person to be president, who will make history as the first woman president of the United States. Hillary Clinton, hey, she's faced that locker room attitude from an awful lot of people her whole life. We are trying to make history and do something different and face off against a lifetime of, locker room talk and locker room attitudes that have been in the way of electing a woman president of the United States.
And that golden phrase, Meghan McCain, was coined by none other than Donald Trump. I mean, he handed her a gift by using that. That's just locker room talk. But she's been using, to quote the Wall Street Journal editorial page, her gender as a sword and a shield the entire time. And Donald Trump has played right into it.
Yeah, I mean, he has played right into it. That being said, there are many polls that we've seen time and time again that show that millennial women especially don't really vote on gender. They don't really care. We're going to have a female president. It just doesn't necessarily have to be Hillary Clinton. The problem with the comments that were made is it does play right into the narrative that Hillary Clinton wants, that he's sexist, that he's a misogynist. If I were the Trump campaign right now, every woman he's close to, every woman that's had a positive experience working with him, get them out on TV as much as possible and start with your daughter and your wife. I don't understand why I haven't heard from them. If this were my father running for president right now, it would be the first line of defense I would use, and I would be using Kellyanne Conway more, as I said to Harris. And I think, unfortunately, it exacerbates stereotypes about Republican men, which I talked about earlier on in the show. And this damage, I think he has mitigated some of the bleeding, but he still has a gunshot wound over his tape.
Any criticism of Hillary Clinton as a politician, as a candidate, she almost always turns it into criticism of her as a woman, making it sexist. And criticism of her as an individual is criticism of the entire gender of people.
Yeah, I think people are just tired of this kind of divisive identity politics way of looking at things. It does work to a certain extent, but I think this is just not the conversation people want to have. And when she talks about playing, or when we talk about her playing the woman card, I think it depends, frankly, what we mean by that. If she's going to keep going with a real focus and her campaign on the specifics of Trump's behavior and the way he's spoken and so on, then I think it really is reasonable to ask for a level playing field and say, well, hang on a second, you, Hillary Clinton, are on tape back in the day, sitting alongside your husband when he's saying that my private life is private and it doesn't affect how I'll do the job of president and we should keep my private life out of it. And she's agreeing with that back then. And so if the view today is that somehow Trump's behavior and his remarks bring disgrace upon the presidency, and that's a reasonable position to have, then we should apply that same standard to her. And Bill Clinton's past behavior is the same, and therefore she should, at the very least, say things like, he's not going to be on the campaign trail with me. If I win, I'm not going to give him a job in my government, my administration, running economic policy, which she said...
He has to live in Chappaqua.
You've got to have... yeah, I mean, even he's not going to be in the White House. You've got to have a fair standard, I think.
So who took the conversation up to the next level about what was said versus what was done? That was Donald Trump the other night. And he said, look, I'm just spitting out the facts of what he said. Piggybacking off of what you just said, if you're going to do some comparisons here, he actually made a different comparison, but along the same lines. He said, look, I said these things. He's apologized for them. He did these things, said and did what matters most to you, the voter. He gave people a choice.
But he stayed away from the entire Bill and Hillary Clinton scandal, the 90s, for so long. And it wasn't really until now that he decided to use this politically as much as he has. So if you go back to, maybe he could have gotten ahead of this and said, you know what, there's going to be things that come out about me, about my past life, that you're not going to like. But and I'm not proud of them. And you're going to see it. But just remember, those are words and those are not actions.
Do you think he even had an idea, though? Because at the end